Hello, and welcome to Quest Me, the Star Wars podcast that takes you on a quest through legends and new canon. My name is Josh, and I'm your forever host and force-wielding Enzillin. I'm going to keep rolling with that. I don't even care. I liked that from the last episode. Anyway, we are talking tonight about Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, The Mines of Mandalore. As we always do, talking about Star Wars. Duh. Before we go too much further, I gotta make some introductions. Unfortunately, Justin is not gonna be with us for a minute. He might be back a little later, but as you all know, he is our resident hero, and he actually is out working right now, doing real hero things. So, unfortunately, he's not with us at the beginning, but he might be with us a little bit later. So, of course, we have some other people with us. One of them, his name is Phil. He's our brand new co-host. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You know, it's been a good week. It's been a good day. It was a great episode of Mandalorian. I have been, thinking about this episode, this podcast, all week long since I watched this episode at 5 in the morning on Wednesday before work.
Yup.
Yeah. But thank you for coming and hanging out.
Happy to be here.
One of the main reasons I wanted you to be here as a permanent co-host were for emergencies like this when Justin is unable to make the show.
Literal, actual emergencies.
Yes. Out in big flashing trucks doing big flashing life-saving things, and it's wonderful, and I respect the shit out of him for it. So, we have a really, really special guest tonight. He's returning to the show. He's an OG quester. I've been talking about it all week on Twitter. I am extremely humbled and flattered that he took some time out of his extremely busy schedule to come back to where it all began. Of course, I am talking about Mr. Captain Bootscoot himself, my very good friend, Jesse.
Oh, hi, Josh. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm actually not that busy, but I appreciate it. To your point, though, this is the only time in probably the last, year straight that I haven't been just incredibly busy all the time. So thank you for allowing me, the space to kind of stretch my legs back out and get back into podcasting mode, and B, the space to return to Quest Me. It's been a while. We started Quest Me together originally with Season 2 of The Mandalorian?
Yes.
It
was 2.
It was Season 2. Man, that was a while ago. It was a long time between seasons for this show.
It was a year and a half, I think. Something like that.
Was that
thereabouts?
I thought it was like 2 years ago that we did. Anyway, thank you for having me back, and I appreciate the chance to come here and talk Star Trek. Star Wars with you. That may happen more than once tonight, listeners and viewers. I apologize.
That's okay. You are from a Star Trek podcast. Like you said, originally it was Quest Me, then we went to Sudden But Inevitable, and now your main home and pride and joy, and it's a wonderful show. It's called Open Pike Night. And just tell us a little bit about that show, because it's popping off, man.
Well, thank you. As Josh mentioned, Open Pike Night is the Star Trek Strange New Worlds podcast where your personal logs are the prime directive. We like to put fans directly in contact with the people who make Star Trek Strange New Worlds, people like Melissa Navia, the current pilot of the Enterprise, Lieutenant Erico Ortegas, or, Henry Alonzo Myers, the showrunner, Davey Perez, lots of the writing team, Akela Cooper, who wrote an episode. You may have also recently seen her work in the movie Megan. My wife and I went and saw that. That was a ton of fun.
It's a pretty good movie.
It was one of those movies where I was like, I am going to feel safe this whole time, and I'm happy with that. Like, I'm not super worried that I'm going to come away from this traumatized, but I'm here to have some fun, and I absolutely did. So, but yeah, we started, as Josh mentioned, about a year ago as just kind of an after show, like, call in and talk about how you felt about the latest Strange New Worlds episode. And I'm the social media person for that show. So I spend a lot of my time on social media and was sort of cultivating some, fan worship style relationships with some of the people from the show. And then we got very lucky with an interview with Melissa Navia after the first season. And we've just kind of kept interviewing people since then. She sort of opened a door for us that we refuse to leave. Like, people are probably at this point going, okay, stop answering their requests. And we're like, okay, but our foot's still in the door. So, like, you have to talk to us, right? So to that end, we did go recently to our first ever live panel. We had a live panel at Fan Expo Portland, and we spent the first 2 days, just handing out stickers on the con floor, stickers like this, which you can buy at openpike.com, and telling people, hey, please come to our panel, because it was on the third day at the end of the convention after all the Star Trek actors had gone home. So we were very worried, like, oh, we're going to do this to an empty room, and we're going to be fine with it, right? Like, it's our
Welcome
first
to
show.
musician life,
like,
dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we were fine. But actually that didn't happen. We had like 25, 30 people in there, and we were blown away by the response. We recognized people that we had handed stickers to 2 days prior, came in and showed up, and we spent, the rest of our con time meeting Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, all the TNG actors that were there, that kind of thing. So it's just been a huge, incredible thing that none of us imagined it would be. And of course, I wouldn't be a part of it if I hadn't started here with you, Josh, on Quest Me all those, well, I guess last year or a year and a half ago, right? But I mean, our podcasting history together goes back further than that. But as far as what's easily available for people to listen to, Sudden But Inevitable was 2 years ago. You and I did Quest Me. I want to say we did Quest Me before that. I'm nearly certain that we did.
No, we did
But-
Quest Me, and then we did Sudden But Inevitable. Because
That's
it
what
was
I'm
kinda
saying.
like we got the itch, and Ricky D
That's-
was in
that's
Quest
what I'm
Me,
saying.
And like, yeah.
So Quest Me
okay,
was
okay.
so Sudden But Inevitable was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it would
wow,
have
maybe-
been, because it would have been. I mean,
That's
it's
right.
been a while
this
since
is,
the
this is a year. This is a year and a half after Book of Boba Fett.
right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been like
Holy
3 years since
cow.
Mando.
Almost,
right?
yeah.
Almost 3 years since Mando. 2.5
Dang.
years. Like,
Because yeah, we've
I
had
mean-
Boba Fett, Andor, and Obi-Wan
do you
in
know
between that.
how much Star Trek has come out in that time? Like,
Listen,
not to be that guy. I just
don't wanna
mean
talk
like
about it.
I specifically am. I'm kind of surprised, right? Because there was a fire hose of Star Wars, and then I feel like we sort of caught up. But
But at least you caught up with good content, because I was just watching
Yes.
Picard before we went live, and
that's my
that
that's my-
new season is great. Oh, how cool!
I'm showing Josh, for those of you who can't
Oh,
see, I'm
but
showing my
so
programming badge from Fan Expo. It's become a prized possession. I have it in a little frame, and I'll always have it in this little frame.
Absolutely,
Like,
dude, come on,
if we
Buried with
never
that thing.
if we never like achieve another thing as a podcast, right? I'll always have this thing in the frame. It's
Hell
one
yeah.
of the coolest things. But yes,
And
thank you, and I'm glad to be back talking Mando, because that's how you and I first realized, oh, if we're the right kind of contentious with each other, people will listen.
It's very true. And again, we are so stoked to have you back on. I want to thank the people that are watching right now too. Hello to you guys. I don't know who you are, but I see you in there. So hello. We are live on Sundays. We changed that. We used to go live on Tuesdays, and now we are live on Sundays at about 7:30 Mountain Standard Time, kind of depending on the week. Sometimes it'll be 8, sometimes it'll be 8:30. It just kind of depends on what's going on. But you can find us at youtube.com/@questme. That's @questme. I don't understand why YouTube wouldn't let me just make the thing.
It was
But I had to put an
it was
@
a
sign
uniformity thing. They wanted everybody to have the same URL.
Stupid.
Can I
Stupid.
clarify something? Justin is a stripper, you said?
Yes.
Yes.
He was riding down the pole earlier and out doing his job.
You said something
now.
about a flashing van, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I
Big,
don't want to
big
go."
flashing truck.
Yes, I don't want to go
Yes.
any further into that, but
No. Hopefully,
however
he
you
comes
make your
back.
money, Justin, I respect and miss you.
Hopefully, he gets back by the end, at least by segments, because it would be nice to have him talk about the epic segments that he had picked out. Just one more thing, make sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube, and then ring that bell so you can know about the times when we are live, like right now.
I got one more question for you though, Jesse, before we really dive into this week.
Yes, sir.
We got more Open Pike night coming up, right?
Oh, 100%. There's always more Open Pike night coming up. So if you want to get into Open Pike night, the easiest way that you can do that is just stay in whatever podcasting app you're in right now and look up Open Pike night. It'll pop right up. Hit subscribe. If you're on YouTube, just replace the @QuestMe part of that with @Open Pike. We're Open Pike everywhere. And let's see. I don't know if I can. I can't really tell you what the next episode is yet because two reasons. One reason, we have a very big secret episode in the works that you should definitely be excited for. The other reason is I don't know what's next because, as I mentioned, we just got back from having like a very well planned out month, and we ran out of shows at the end of that. So we're going to put one together as we always do with the help of our audience. That's sort of the deal. We're a call-in show. So if you're interested, just go to openpike.com. If you'd like to contribute, go to openpike.com/join us. You can record your voicemail right there, send it in, and we'll put it on the show.
And we are also on all of the different social medias. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Just search for QuestMe. We will also have links in the show notes afterward.
Absolutely. Last week, we had a fun little joke about maybe possibly doing a new segment. And this week, I made that happen. So let's start with that. Phil, take us to a bar far away and tell us what we are drinking tonight. I don't know what that is.
Oh, hey, look at that. Let me remember to unmute myself. God damn.
Professional.
Super professional. Good night, everybody. I'm out.
This is a thematic drink that I do not understand.
Yeah, yes. You're able to get all the... We're just doing the video. People out listening to the recording afterward, you're out of luck.
Yeah. So.
No, so this is a cocktail courtesy. It's not a Star Wars themed cocktail, but it is from a recipe from a Star Wars author.
Ooh.
Yeah. So Kevin Hearn is the author of Heir to the Jedi. He also writes the Iron Druid Chronicles and various spin-off series, but he is a fantastic guy and a brilliant mind when it comes to coming up with cocktails. So he created something he calls a blueberry sagacity. So this is gin, blueberries, and a sage simple syrup, and then topped off with ginger beer. So
That sounds fantastic.
it
Tastes
is
like
delicious.
Tastes like a tree that gets you smashed, if I'm not mistaken.
A little bit.
accurate?
It's fancy camping. Camping with druids.
There you go. There you go.
That's great.
That's earthy tones.
No, it's delicious. It's lightly sweet, but it's a lot of different herbal notes depending on the kind of gin you use. So,
See, and my girlfriend's a bartender, so I'm going to be taking all these recipes from you and like making her make them. Because my drink tonight, it is not Star Wars themed. It is in a Star Wars themed cup, but it is just vodka and Red Bull. So,
I like it.
but I think we're going to keep doing that segment because that was fun. I like
Yeah.
talking about what we're drinking. And man, you
I have
are an
a-
incredible bartender.
I have a medium roast, French roast here with Lucerne coffee creamer, Dairy Farms. Yes, it's pretty medium, I would say. If you like these stickers, though, you can go to openpike.com and get your own.
It's going to
Just
be like
throwing it
that
out there.
all freaking night. Oh,
No, I figured I
jeez.
should probably do it a few times up front and then wait again until the end.
He's just going to front load all of the.
We
all
don't want
the
it to be
ads for everything
obnoxious.
else.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay. And all the links for Open Pike will be in the show notes as well. So if you want to go get those stickers, go down to those show notes in the podcast and click on that link.
Yep.
Hello, Claire. Thanks for joining us. Claire asks, how many have you had, Phil? How many have you have, Phil? How many have you have, Claire?
Yeah, I think we need to ask Claire that.
You know what? This is my first one of these tonight.
See?
I do have a backup so that I don't have to, get up in the middle of the show.
Just in
and go
case
get
I drink
something
this
else.
whole thing.
Yeah, there might be a
no,
time
but
where
I
I'm
will,
Like, hang on, I'll be right back.
I will make sure that Josh has the recipe available for this one too.
Yeah.
Like I said,
yeah.
courtesy of Kevin Hearn. You can find him on Twitter. He's at Kevin Hearn. He's not super active on there right now. He's mostly on Mastodon, but hey.
Mastodon the band? Oh, what a sick band.
Dude,
Crack the Sky was a great album.
saw them play it live.
Wait, maybe that was a song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was an album and a song. I saw him play the whole thing live once.
You know, I saw them with Coheed and Cambria once. Like, what a weird combo.
I can
wasn't
beat
like-
you.
That must have been a long show. I'll just
It was a long show.
I saw him live with Death Clock.
What?
That must have been on a college campus.
No, actually, that one was at was that at the Fillmore? Might have been. It was in Denver. It was a
Nice. What is that? Another? Oh, is that a hairpiece?
It is a Captain Pike hairpiece.
Pike
That's
hairpiece.
spectacular.
That's so awesome. Oh, that's great. So, thanks for letting us know what you're drinking tonight, Phil and Jesse.
You are welcome.
Again, I'm just a plain Jane over here. We do have some corrections from last week, which I feel like we don't normally do in Quest Me, but I've always wanted to. And so last week I made a point to go through and have some corrections. And boy, did we have a few. First things first, Wesley Kimmel was also the child Tusken in the Book of Boba Fett. That wasn't his first acting role. He was also that character.
Cough, Nepo baby, cough.
Yeah. Ahsoka
Happy
was-
Oscars night, everybody.
Oh, yeah. If there's nothing for you to watch there, be here with us.
Yeah, what? Next correction, Ahsoka was only in season 2, not season 1 of Mandalorian. I don't know why we thought that, but we said it.
Maybe we were drunk.
Yeah, maybe. This one's a little bit different, and I might have to look it up really quick, but I just want to say Hitmon Chan and Hitmon Lee were absolutely not influenced by Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. They were actually influenced by very popular Japanese boxers and martial
but-
artists that I don't really want to get into. I gotta say that's a
Mike-
correction, man. That's a correction. We were
Okay,
wrong.
but in the United States localization, that's probably why they chose those names.
They
right?
picked those names. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Either way.
all the hundreds of you that have been emailing Josh all week about that, just relax, okay?
You can stop blowing up his DMs. We
And
And
got
the
it.
death threats, please.
And, like, in the nicest way, get a life. Like, it's come on. It's just Pokemon. But I totally get it.
yeah.
Pokemon recap podcast coming soon.
Oh, yeah. Starting with episode 1 of the anime.
Oh my god, dude. Two more. Just got two more. The Anzillans that were in the episode last week, one of them is not actually Babu Frick. He's not in that episode. They are just considered Anzillans. So-
They are voiced by,
Voiced by
the
the
same
same guy.
actress, though.
Or same actress, you're right, my bad. But not Babu Frick.
Yeah.
And then this one is for you, Jesse, because Justin at one point had said Mando was firing his
Proton torpedo.
proton torpedo
Yep.
and then corrected it to photon torpedo.
Yep.
You want to
And I-
educate us a little bit on the difference between proton and photon?
Well, I mean, a proton is any positively charged particle, if I'm not mistaken, whereas a photon specifically is a particle that carries light and sometimes acts like a wave, maybe? Go listen to the Open Pike Night episode with Dr. Aaron McDonald, science advisor and actual astrophysicist from the state of Colorado, to the entire franchise of Star Trek. Just throwing it out there. I really hope I got that right. Phil, you made some faces that made me feel like I got that right.
I'm happy to have science advisors out of Colorado doing stuff anywhere.
100%. So and to Justin's point, I think those are easy words to mix up. But photons are, primarily torpedo based in the Star Trek universe rather than the Star Wars galaxy. I think you guys use the word galaxy, right?
Yeah. Yes, that is what we use over here.
Ours is mostly in one
Star
galaxy
War.
too. We just pretend that it's not. So.
Oh my God. That's it for corrections, though. Thank you, Jesse, for participating and educating us on torpedoes. I think it's time to get this show on the road and actually start talking about the episode that we are here to talk about, which is Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore. Of course, I'm going to do my own little synopsis that I normally do. Too bad Justin's not here to hear it, but Jesse will absolutely see the comedy in this one. We start off on Tatooine again to meet up with good old Pelimoto. She's unsurprisingly hustling people, but we're lucky because she's a softie. Mando gets the supplies he needs and heads off to the fabled planet of Mandalore, where things suddenly but inevitably get a little dicey.
Nice.
So this episode was directed by Rachel Morrison, who is mostly a cinematographer. This might be one of her first directorial debuts. It might be her directorial debut. I'm not positive. I didn't look that far into it, but all I could find was her cinematography, which was on Black Panther, Mudbound, and the show Dope. This episode was also written by Jon Favreau. It stars Pedro Pascal, Katie Sackhoff, and guest stars Amy Sedaris, Brendan Wayne, and Lateef Crowder. Now, Pedro Pascal, thank God tonight is the Last of Us season finale, because people can start watching this again instead of watching Last of Us, even though that show is wonderful, and Pedro Pascal is just the daddest of all dads and everything. I would love to see more people watching us. So I do want to start off this episode just by talking about the Boonta Eve Classic. What?
Oh,
we get to
man.
see the classic again.
Yeah.
Jesse, were you excited to see some Boonta Eve action?
Actually, my mind immediately went to the economic structure of all this. So, Josh, I don't know about you. Do you have to work on Boonta Eve or Boonta specifically? Because my favorite Mythosaur place isn't even open on Sunday, but I also don't have to work Boonta Eve. So do you work Boonta Eve or Boonta itself? Is it Boonta Day? What would you say?
Is it Happy Boonta or Merry Boonta? I can never remember.
Do you celebrate Boonta or only Boonta Eve?
I would assume you celebrate Boonta, but I work in retail, so I work.
Oh yeah, so you're working on
every
Boonta
Boonta.
Eve. Yeah. You're working on Boonta morning at 6 a.m. Yeah. That's rough, man.
So,
I gotta say,
Boonta doorbusters, man.
I saw the speedy little things, and I heard the engine noises, and I'll be 100% honest with you, Josh. The 9-year-old in me was like, pod racing. Like, I feel like pod racing is a concept that should be heavily leaned into by podcasters in some way. Like, how do you have a pod race? Is that like a race? I don't know. We'll figure that out. But I fully admit, even as a non-Star Wars fanboy, I was like, oh, I feel like kind of a Star Wars fanboy hearing those pod engines. And Pelly just continues to be a ton of fun. Like, she's is this what is the actor's name?
Amy Sedaris.
Okay.
And
I love her,
I
and
adore
I love
her in
her
this.
brother. Like, her and her brother are two of my favorite performers, actors, creators, writers of any kind.
who's her brother?
David
David
Sedaris.
Sedaris. He's an
a
author.
comedy. He's a
Okay.
very snarky writer.
Okay.
He's also really fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I also thought that same thing when I heard the engines, and I was like, oh my God, are those pods? What's going on here? But then you kind of
just
see them
speeder races.
they're just little speeders. And it's funny because something happened to pod racing. Do you guys know what actually happened to pod racing, or do you want me to go into it?
I mean, I feel like no matter what we say,
Educate me.
you will tell us what happened to pod racing.
So, in the new canon, pod racing was outlawed by the New Republic due to its dangerous nature. But they still did pod racing on like random planets on the outer rim. So, I don't know if we'd see much pod racing unless, I mean, if they ever do that Lando show, he seems like someone that would be into underground things, and maybe we'd see some pod racing, but
Do you think there's any
unfortunately-
chance that the next season of Star Wars Visions will have like Star Wars: The Force and the Furious, and it'll be illegal pod racing? And
I honestly hope so. I would be 100% here for that.
if there's
you never had
anything,
me, you never had your pod.
seriously, if there's one thing Star Wars has always done better than Star Trek, it's the like seedy criminal underworld stuff, right? Like that's just a fact, and I'm willing to admit that up front. So
You
that
know-
having been said, like somebody lean into that if you're out there. I'm sure Disney is out there watching now that they've got new management. So take that note down, and you can totally have it. I won't sue anybody. You can use
Please.
this in court.
Please.
Yeah, you want something fun I just found?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Bunta. The actual like holiday of Bunta Eve is
Mhm.
to celebrate a hut named Bunta Hestelik Shadru, who became a god.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's all you got to do, huh?
that's it. Just
So-
ascend to godhood.
Did
That's
So
it.
there are gods in Star Wars? I didn't realize there were gods in Star
Yeah.
Wars.
But again, is it Bunta Day the next day, or is it just Bunta?
Just-
Or
Bunta Eve.
okay, but the day after, right? Because Bunta Eve.
It was apparently an evening thing, and so the nighttime is what they celebrate. They don't sell it's
Oh,
there's no Bunta Day.
it's not
It's
a.
just
Okay.
Bunta
I'd
Eve.
like to say hello to Ricky D.
Yeah,
in
we
the
gotta
pu-
we gotta
in
do
the
some little
chat.
shout outs here.
Oh shit!
Ricky
Hi,
says-
Ricky.
He made
He
it.
says
We're
he made
talking
it.
about how Bunta works, Ricky.
Yeah. But he said he just finished Last of Us. Pedro bringing some big Mando energy to the finale. I love to hear that. Roy says, I'm assuming this was the torpedo conversation.
Torpedo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
tor-
steal
I
that
hope
idea
not. That would
for
be uncomfortable.
merchandise.
And he also says, missed your faces. Love you all. Keep killing it. Thank you, Roy. I miss your face as well. Speederbike Motocross. I love it.
They had a whole franchise about that on the PlayStation.
Yes, Ricky. If you rewind like I don't know what 2 minutes, you guys, I made a hilarious joke about pod racing, and I think you should go back and get it. I'm not going to say it again because it will lessen the impact of the punchline. So I think you should go back and then fast forward to here so that you can be caught up. Sorry, Josh. Go ahead.
And, you know,
Pelly's
Ricky's a-
middle name is secretly Jet. Pelly Jet Moto.
Jet Moto.
Ricky and Roy are both dear friends of the podcasting realm of ours. And speaking of old friends, we get to see R5D4 get a little bit of redemption in this episode. So just a couple things before I guess we get too far into R5D4 because they're in Pelimoto's shop and she sells him on R5. Meanwhile, the whole time she's holding Grogu because he jumps out of the N1 into her arms like a little Yoda would, like a little Force-using Jedi thing. And I think that's kind of the first time in Mandalorian that we see him doing those fun jumps. But then he talks a little bit more in this episode, and it kind of starts with Pelimoto. Do you think he said his first word right there, or are we going to have to take bets on what his first word is going to be?
As a parent, it is always kind of hard to say when exactly that first word comes around.
Okay.
There's occasionally multiple candidates for when it's intelligible, deliberate, actual word versus when it's just babbling that happens to sound like something.
Yes.
Okay.
You as a podcaster know all about this, Josh.
I do. You're right. You're absolutely. I babble all the time.
But you'll
about-
eventually get to a spot where you're like, that was a word. That was 100% a word right there at the end of that.
Sometimes a sequence of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ricky says probably
Mm.
something stupid about racing podcasts.
Close.
Claire
It was
obviously nailed it.
actually even funnier than that, but it's okay. Claire missed it too. You can both rewind. You've got time. By the time you get back, we'll still be talking about this, I would bet.
Yeah. So back onto R5D4. Did
Okay.
Mando complete his quest here of
Wait.
because last week-
Wait.
Okay, sorry.
Why? Why is R5D4 okay as a
He's
replacement? And why? No. Just listen, because they had a whole episode where he's like, it has to be IG-11. Is it because he, like, is there something specific about that droid other than he trusts it?
no,
Because
that's
like,
it.
It feels like a very like, oh, never mind, I didn't need that anyway. Then, like,
So Mando is famously anti-droid in the first season. I mean, he's very opposed to working with droids, and his experience with IG-11 kind of changes that.
or it doesn't because he's like, I still don't trust droids. I only trust IG-11. So how much progress is there?
He
really?
trusts IG-11 because he knows that IG-11 will take care of Grogu if shit goes down.
Right, but do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah, no, I don't see how it's exactly an even trade, you know. But
Well, and
if
it's-
all he wants is for, you know, the droid for atmospheric, you know, analysis,
which,
then...
like, I'm sorry, is that because you just didn't feel like pressurizing your helmet, which you can just do, I guess? Like, I like these are genuine questions that I have
So,
about the structure
I
because I feel
think-
like they come out of a video game, which is okay for a video game.
It's so funny
Right.
because the last part of my notes, let me just read this last part of my notes. It says the last half of this episode is straight video game status. So
Ah.
I think he's still going to try and fix IG-11 because of what Phil said, that he trusts IG-11 to take care of Grogu. But I think that he took R5 right now because he just needed a droid to go out and check the surface. Like, he didn't know if Mandalore was going to, like, you know, what if it's like raining and it's acid rain and he steps out and like everything he just dies, you know, like even if he pressurizes his helmet, like he's for all he knows with the rumors and stuff, like that whole planet is cursed and like you die if you set foot there basically. And so I think he just needed the droid at the moment to go take care of what he needed to take care of and then move on from there. So
And
the question
it
here
sets up R5's presence sets up everything in the second half of the episode.
Yes.
They having an astromech enables the entire second half of the episode.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, IG-11 was he just gonna
Oh.
cram himself in that little like?
Where
area,
no,
that little
Phil
bubble
Phil
area?
is saying that Grogu did not learn the map and all of the stuff quickly enough. He had
No,
to have the droid.
No, I mean he knew where he needed to go, but he didn't know actually how to fully operate the ship on his own.
Yes, he can't
And I-
just like get in a ship and jump it. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
know how to fly a ship.
And
Yes,
I think an
that's
astromech droid, being an astromech droid, the one that their specialty is to control ships.
right.
I think it probably made more sense at this point. I do still think he is going to.
Claire in the chat,
Um,
Grogu has the pod. He doesn't
that.
need a helmet. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, see, okay.
I
okay,
still think
yeah,
he'll
there
get
you
one
go.
before the end of the thing.
I think he will too.
A helmet?
But-
Oh, absolutely, dude. Well,
but-
especially, and dude, we're gonna talk about that later for sure because we touched on it last episode a little bit, and I want to just dive into it and just hard turn into our little theory from last week. But there's a lot more to get to before that, and that
Oh,
most of that's
absolutely.
gonna be in our segments. I think we'll talk about a lot of that there. So my final question, like, do you guys think? I think he's still going to go find a memory circuit for IG-11. Do you guys think he's still going to go find a memory circuit, or has he completed his quest right now for that?
I don't think he's gonna abandon IG-11 to life as a statue. I think he'll still follow through and eventually track down the memory circuit at some point. But I think that's gonna be secondary to other things now that we've, you know, actually made it to the surface of Mandalore.
I think he
Yes.
will bring something back to Pelly and be like, "Here, fix my ship," and she'll be like, "Oh, you got the IG memory unit," and he'll be like, "What?" I legitimately think it'll be a thing that he just
Just
He doesn't even
accidental.
know.
when he was like getting parts or like, somewhere he will have picked it up. I think he won't even know, or like Grogu will pick it up because it's shiny. And then they'll, she'll be like, "Oh, hey, look, you got the thing," and he'll be like, because Grogu would know, right? Like,
Yeah,
I think it'll be something like that. I think he'll end up with that part without having known
It's-
about it.
it's
Because
gonna be the new little control
The
handle
control knob,
knob.
Oh.
Yeah.
and the reason I think that is because this episode is like the most economical 44 minutes of Mando I have ever seen. Like
it is a very
much in
tight
this episode.
script.
Yeah,
It's a
like,
very tight script.
yeah. I mean, I got upset with the number of camera wipes because I am like that.
Nice
but like
resolve.
there was. I get it. It's a Star Wars thing, right? Like you gotta have
There were a lot, though.
wipes, but
There's
Yeah.
maybe too many.
okay. So when Grogu was like trying to save Mando, which Mecha Shelob totally worked on me, by the way. I love that. But that whole time it was like Grogu does a thing, Mando says a thing, Grogu goes to a place, somebody says something, Grogu goes to another place, Grogu says something, people go to another place. I mean, like it was like, dude, a lot just happened in the span of like 3 minutes. We went to 4 planets, which I'm fine with, totally fine with it. Like that, I am totally fine with. Some of the other things that feel a little more
we
video
didn't
gamey,
linger-
I'll get into, but
We didn't
I
linger
like
on
him.
Tatooine. I liked that.
Right.
Oh, thank God.
We didn't linger anywhere
Yeah.
in this episode, which I do like. I also like the. I watched the first episode, and there was like a shot of some squid in the hyperspace.
Oh,
tunnel that Grogu was
the-
in, and I was like,
Oh.
okay,
He's-
that's
he's found the
properly
Purrgil.
creepy.
Jesse's found the Purrgil.
Yep.
Purrgil.
That's from Rebels,
So-
man. That's a huge callback to Rebels, Thrawn, and Ezra. Like,
It's funny
It's huge.
because if you've been watching season 3 of Star Trek Picard, they recently just were in a nebula that gave birth to a bunch of little squid-like creatures, and it was
spoiler. Damn it.
a spoiler. Sorry, I'm not super. I figured if you said you were watching it, that's totally on me. No,
I haven't watched the newest episode.
that's
but-
totally on me. But they're in a nebula. Spoiler alert:
Yeah,
there
oh,
will
yeah,
be
yeah.
squid creatures.
Yeah.
So just cool to see, sci-fi space squid creatures on both shows in roughly the same week. I think is fun.
That is kind of funny,
But
actually.
the I do like any instance where we just have Mando on a quest. Like
Yes.
I really like Mando being on a quest. He's very single-minded. He's he's just looking. Oh, thank you, Claire, for the additional Star Trek crossover. This is when Mando is at his best, is when he's going on a quest or putting together a party to go on a quest, right? Like that's when I like Mando a lot. I will say, is Star Wars a little bit predictable, maybe with its creature moments? Yeah, but I'm probably okay with that.
This
like-
one was a little different, I feel like.
I'm gonna disagree there, but
yeah.
but we can disagree later in the segments if you
I
like.
get
liked
bait and
the
switches.
little eyeball creature, and it switched it up a little bit.
Mhm.
You know, like
Mhm.
he was one giant mecha ball eyeball thing, and then he was a little General Grievous, clone thing.
Right.
And
I
think
like
that was different as far as like monsters
yeah.
go.
I like that
Or
we got
villains or whatever.
new stuff.
Yes.
I mean, we're on a planet we haven't really seen since Clone Wars.
Yep.
Um,
Like, well,
We saw it in
a
Rebels.
little in Rebels too,
But it was
That's-
getting
that's fair.
destroyed in Rebels. They were already
Yeah.
taking over that planet the Empire was and like killing all the Mandalorians and stuff. Like, so we got to see the very beginning of Mandalore get destroyed, and now we're seeing like
Now we see the aftermath. Yeah.
and it's really cool, man. I love the way that this whole like every shot that they had with the ships coming in or like them walking on the surface or anything like that was just epic. It was phenomenal though, and it just looked so pretty,
The
All
the
green
cinematography
and it was great.
the cinematography on, especially when they were on Mandalore, was spectacular.
Yes. And
we'll get
the
to that.
temples underneath and everything were really cool. I mean, it was a sight to behold, I feel like, this episode.
They're doing a really good job of like. I was arguing with another Star Wars fan today, Josh,
Big surprise.
about how Star Wars tends to over-explain itself and then
Oh yeah.
stumble in those instances. Any property can stumble in the over-explaining, right? So I really like that
We
Mando
don't
is
talk about the warp
expanding.
core.
I really like that Mando is expanding this lore, that's, air quote, for this character, but it's actually just for the universe, right? Like, this is just the universe of Star Wars. Here's some lore for it. And this character is your inroad to that, which I think is really fun. So even as a casual fan, I'm appreciating the lore level that I'm getting in an episode of Star Wars that doesn't contradict anything that I know as a casual
Right.
fan, right? Where I'm not
Well,
like,
it's also giving
oh,
the
this takes
casual
place in
fan.
that. Right.
If you would like to know more, would you like to know more? You could go back to Clone Wars and watch those specific Mandalorian episodes and
Right.
see what actually happened with Bo's father and those things. Like it was actually, I thought it was super cool being a fan of Clone Wars and Rebels, and her talking about the past. I was like, oh, this is kind of like heartbreaking, Like,
There was kind of a fun nod to that with Din picking up the Mando
The
helmet.
when
Yeah,
Sabine does that in Rebels, when they all get disintegrated because she creates a weapon that just fries Mandalorians under their armor. Yeah,
no, very
Were the,
nice little
I
nods there.
caught that.
Were the Morlocks there in that series? Because the Morlocks that
No.
Mando fights are
I
pretty fun.
I feel like they talked about them being on the outskirts of the city.
Right, but
They were
have you ever
talk-
seen these guys before?
This
'Cause
is
they're
this
straight
is
up
the
Morlocks.
first
I think so.
time that. Thank you for that, though. The time machine references. Wow,
Yes. Oh my
that's-
God.
whew.
That's so true. The only thing they were missing was the zipper on their back.
I mean, and we don't know that they were missing that. Like I like that the
I'm sure it
suits
was
were
there.
properly kind of foamy, right? Like you could
Yeah.
see, you
Yeah.
could see that was a guy in a suit, and I like that.
That's so funny.
I like that a lot.
Why you
Man, it
got to
was
bring
very
up
time
zippers on the
machine-y.
back when Jesse's on the show?
It's bound
Well,
to
because
happen.
he brought up Time Machine, and that's one of the main things I remember of Time Machine. Watching it as a kid, I was like, oh, there are zippers on that costume. Ah,
Morlocks and Eloy, man.
yeah. Great callback though. For
No,
sure.
they were fun though. The Alamites. That was a
they were
that
they were badass.
it was
Came
a
out of
great
nowhere.
ambush. It was a
They,
great
live
ambush.
they just live in those tunnels. What would you call them? Groundhogs.
Well,
and then
it's
just pop out.
Like a
what I
little prairie
mean-
dog town.
And what I
Yeah.
mean when I say that, Star Wars is a little predictable with its creature moments, right? I was like, as soon as he walks into this very cool cave that looks like it's made of time crystals, I was like, there is always a bigger fish, right? Because the first thing you see is this little angry, alligator thing. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so there'll be something bigger than that. And then the Morlocks were there, and I was like, okay, so there'll be something bigger than that. I don't know how many tiers this has, right? But spoiler alert, it's 5 in this episode, maybe 6 or 7 if you give the spine with an eye that drives a large spider robot. If you give him 2 or 3 of his
Oh.
own, then you could call it multiple tiers there. But it all works to basically the last shot, right? Which is
Yep.
just, I mean, we'll get there, I'm sure. But this episode there's always a bigger fish in a cave rather than under the water, and with some Mandos. I did really like seeing Bo-Katan do a equivalent to a force pull with a Darksaber with a grappler
Her-
instead of a force pull, and then
Yeah.
just
That
whip
was
it around
spectacular.
no problem. Whereas Mando is having problems with it. She's like, "This is what I do, man. I'm
She's fought
what
with
I'm
it
for.
before,
right."
so it was cool to see her fight with it again.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring it up, that whole Darksaber thing, but Phil kind of shut me down because I kind of thought maybe since the iRobot, whatever his name, whatever that thing is,
I did the Bionicle.
Bionicle, cool. So I figured since Bionicle disarmed Mando, and then Bo-Katan killed Bionicle, that she would now be the true owner of the Darksaber.
We had a whole conversation about this last week. It's like,
and Phil was like, if you put this on the
no,
show, nobody
no.
will listen to the show.
No,
I just, you know, I thought
it
about
has
it.
to
And
be defeating in combat, and Din wasn't defeated in combat. He was ambushed and knocked out,
All
and
right,
then
all right.
stripped
Touche.
of his possessions.
But how cool was the being wrapped in a spider web
cage?
made
Oh,
of
that was-
rebar?
That
Like,
thing was
Yeah.
I love that.
reminded me a little bit, actually, of a DC Comics character.
Which one?
Probably one you haven't seen. One of the Sinestro Corps.
Ooh.
So the yellow
Oh,
lanterns.
from Green. Okay.
Yeah, so there's
Green
a
Lantern.
character named Crib
Okay.
in
I don't know, Crib.
don't either.
Crib is a Sinestro Corps member, and she's creepy.
She's creepy.
No, like she goes around and like stashes babies in a little like organic cage thing on her back.
Oh, that is creepy.
Yeah,
Crib. I get it.
yeah,
Whoa.
KRYB Crib.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That is kind of cool. And I couldn't find anything about like if this was taken from an old Ralph McQuarrie design or anything like that, because they like to do that in the
They
show. where
do. They like to like reuse some concept art and play around
Yeah.
with it again. But
I feel like they kind of elaborated on those old like Grievous guards. The
yeah,
droids
the
that he
Magna
had.
Guards.
Yeah, Magna Guards. Thank you. I
Yeah.
feel like this was a play on that. Just with it was kind of Grievous and a Magna Guard combined into one.
I
See, and this is my next point. I really think that the eyeball was taking him for body parts.
yeah, no,
Like, he was trying
it's
to-
a cyborg of some sort.
Yes,
It's
and he's,
very
like, trying to
clearly
keep-
got organic parts, and I'm guessing it was draining him of blood. I think it was
Yeah.
like a techno vampire thing.
Yeah,
It
or
looked
like,
like
he was
a
he was
Men in
trying to-
Black alien to me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kinda. I feel like he was the Bionicle was trying to like rebuild himself. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like trying to maybe take certain pieces of bodies and use them to create another like real Bionicle. You know, I'm a real boy.
No, I
So,
think Claire, I think he put the needle like in his arm or something.
I thought it was his back. Might have been his back.
Could have been his back.
But I have no idea. It looked like blood to me, and I feel like he was
li-
draining him of that.
I
Yeah.
like that his phlebotomy machine had a face. Like,
Yeah, no, that was
two big
great. The
googly
little
eyes
like
on it, the blood pump. Yeah.
pump,
Yeah.
which
It's like I'm gonna-
honestly,
yeah.
it
was
made
his
me think
neck.
a little bit
Okay.
of B2 emo from
Oh,
Andor.
yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It's like
Big ol'
like
big
if
ol' eyes hanging on
B2
him.
like if B2 were a like home health
Yeah.
Right.
home health device kind of droid.
Well, Claire says it was in his neck. I mean, it could have been cerebral. It could have been any sort of fluid. I mean, in his neck, you could put it in a big ass vein. You got
I don't
big
think it could
veins
be
in your
urine.
neck. You're right. It couldn't. It might not be urine. Depends. Is this droid a fan of R. Kelly or? I'm sorry.
But wouldn't
And we're gonna edit that bit out.
That was bad.
But yeah, he has
No,
he has a whole like my thing about that I thought was interesting about that was that he didn't like this giant armored thing did not try to disassemble the other armored thing being
Yeah.
Mando. He
yeah.
was just like, oh, that must be how he is. I'll just put this in his neck.
And maybe he
Like-
couldn't get the needle in anything else other than his neck because
Right.
he's
I
got
don't
best
think
of
this is
armor.
the first Mandalorian that this thing is attacked. I think it's
Right,
been
that's
on the
probably
planet
true.
for a long time, and it knows exactly what Din is
right.
and how to
So-
fight him.
And
That
it's
would
just
make
an
sense.
eyeball, right? Like it's an eyeball in a brain stem, basically, that lives in a bag of fluid. So maybe Claire is right. Maybe it needed to live in cerebral fluid,
Eesh, gross.
or maybe it needed like pure adrenochrome
Ooh,
from Din.
That would be
interesting.
I do love the scene when he is captured and the robot's like kind of taking his break. He's like, you know, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat some dinner or something. I love how Grogu like tries to save him.
Mhm.
And there was a really funny video that I found on TikTok that I gotta play because this scene, I just gotta play it. Here you go. Grogu cart, right? I just as soon
And
as I
red
found
shell
I was like,
out of
this is
nowhere.
awesome. Yeah, blue shell. Dang it.
Ah.
But I love that how Grogu's like got some good action in this. He does some cool things. He's a brave little boy, and he essentially saves the day, in a pretty brave way. Like he's running not running, but he's floating as fast as he can, and that little dragon creature's chasing him. And then this is where we see him force push that dude, and like. Did he? Ricky says the stream has been taken down for copyright infringement. Possibly, we'll see. But he does the force push on the time machine. Alamite, yeah. Now that you guys have said time machine, I can't get that.
Morlocks, man.
Oh God.
Morlocks.
But he gets to the ship and he, gets R5 to take him to, what was it, Concordia? No, Concordia is where Mando's from. The other planet where Bo-Katan is. But I want to know when he force pushes Naval something.
Kalevala.
Calavara. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Something like that.
But when he force pushes that thing, does it kill him? Because you'd think he'd be able to get up after just being pushed, right?
Sorry, which thing?
The Alamite.
When Grogu's coming out of the cave and he force pushes that Alamite.
Josh is convinced that this is Grogu's first kill.
Murder.
Gotcha.
Yeah, well, no,
Grogu.
You count the frogs, but
yeah, that's why Grogu jumps that way.
That was
he absorbed all that frog energy from the frogs that he ate, so now he can jump higher. That's how Grogu works. He's a very small Mega Man style alien. But it depends on how the Morlocks are set up on the inside, correct? If they are fragile on the inside and tough on the outside, then as soon as he impacted, maybe some stuff on the inside was all splashy. Okay. You should have asked Justin, because he's a stripper and he would know about internal organ danger.
Well, hopefully he comes back.
Vital parts.
Hopefully he comes back and we'll save that question for him for later.
Yeah.
But really cool scene with Grogu, and just I was kind of giggling the whole time with him going through that and then flipping into the ship and pointing at the thing and going, "Take me here now, you stupid droid!" Like I love that he paid personality. I guess
I love that he paid enough attention,
to know which is
to be able to be like, R5, we need to go here.
Use the map to take me to the place.
He spotted it. He pointed it out on the map, and the droid's like, "Oh shit! Okay, here we go."
That's the one.
Yeah. I really like that Mando didn't be like, "Okay, go get the Darksaber. Okay, try and cut me out. All right, okay.
kid.
Now come over here." Yeah, like I'm glad he didn't like try to walk him through anything dangerous. He was like,
he
just
would have lost a leg.
Yeah. No, I get it. I think it was the right choice, but it was.
It absolutely was.
In my head, I was going, here's another piece of video game narrative, because Mando has no idea how long he has to live. He doesn't know if that thing is going to come back and just cut his head off for use for a thing when he's like, hey, go get in the ship, fly to the other place, find Bo-Katan, bring her back here, everything will be fine. Like, which is not what he said, right? He just said, go find Bo-Katan. Yeah. And I guess he could have just been saying, go stay there, right, to be safe. Yeah. But, like, he had to know what Grogu would try to do, right? Like,
well, I mean, you would think. I'm sure Mando was thinking, like, go get yourself safe, stay with Bo-Katan. Like, I'm probably not going to make it. But Grogu was like, I'm actually just going to save you now.
Let's get help.
Grogu was like, this is the way.
Yeah. So yeah, now Bo-Katan comes in, and this is kind of where the episode really starts to pop off. I feel like you really get some good Bo action as well, like her knowing about it's gone. The name's gone. The cave people. Her knowing where they're
the
hiding.
Alamites.
Yeah, knowing where they're hiding, looking up and going, "Oh, there he is!" Bram, like
right,
and then taking him out like super easily. You know, this is so. Here's my video game narrative. We'll go as far as I can without getting to the end of the episode. But basically, this is how I looked at it. Is series hero gets captured by dungeon boss. Episode hero goes to dungeon to rescue series hero. Episode hero defeats the grunts, the mini boss, and the episode boss. Then season hero gets put in peril again, and the episode hero has to save him from what looks to be the season boss, which I have a question about that as well. But
Oh yeah.
I think there was a lot of like, this could have been a video game. This could have just been like the opening scene to a Grogu or a Bo-Katan video game. You know, you start playing as Mando, he gets captured, you have to go get Bo-Katan, who has like, you know, a couple weapons or whatever, and then she fights through the layer, and like, I definitely see the similarities as well.
Yeah, that's
which is
definitely
funny.
my biggest problem with the episode is
Wh-
the video game narrative.
And it's funny because Pedro Pascal's in another show called The Last of Us, which is based
is
on a video
actually-
game.
Yeah,
And both episodes this week of both of those shows, Pedro's kid had to save him. which
well, I
is
mean,
kinda
Pedro's
funny.
kid in the other show has to save everybody, but
Yes. But like, you know, she had
Who
to
says
actually,
Grogu
like,
won't save the universe?
right.
Yeah,
I
dude.
mean, that's fair. That
or
is
the
fair.
planet of Mandalore. Come on.
Galaxy.
Galaxy, there you go.
Right, and I don't mean to indicate that I feel like the episode is bad or that it is without merit or anything. I just like there's a reason that The Last of Us is the standout, right? It's because that game was already built around narrative and
Exactly.
story
It
arcs,
was-
etc. And so that's pretty easy to translate into a cinematic narrative and story arc, etc. My complaint here is that they're not adapting anything. This is an original show that feels like they're adapting a video game. And I'm at the end of it I'm like, okay, if I watch it in that mindset, it jars me less, right?
Mm.
But should I have to do that with a TV show? We could probably get into that.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a good way to push the story quickly, I feel like.
yes.
And that was something that they kind of had to do. You know, there was an interview with Favreau, I don't know, this week or last week or something, where he was talking about why Mando and Grogu were in Book of Boba Fett. And the reason he did that was so he could push that story further without having to waste time on it in Mandalorian Season 3. So it seems like, with that being said from Favreau, it kind of seems like there's a lot of story that they're putting into this season, and that there's going to be a huge payoff in probably the finale and the next season. That this will be like a big build-up into the bigger story that they're really trying to get into, which would include the Ahsoka series and whatever else they're going to do. So I understand the video game thing. Trust me, it's in my notes. But I also...
It's true. I'm reading them right now.
At the same time, I think they did it for a reason and kind of did it to get this thing going really quickly, which I kind of appreciate, because Mandalorian and Star Wars shows in general are kind of notorious for having really slow filler episodes in very short seasons.
I see. Like, I would argue that the first two seasons of Mandalorian were really well paced all the way through, and
Even
so
with
far,
the frog lady in that, that second season,
yeah,
that was such a...
I liked that. Like, you had,
Oh.
and that's the problem, is that if you're gonna have a serial show, you gotta tell it as a serialized, like, one piece, right? And the
Mhm.
episodic elements are gonna make it feel like some of them are filler, even when they're not. I'm a big proponent of... I understand that writers need to make choices, and I am all for them making choices. I'm also perfectly happy to disagree or agree with those choices, right? Like,
It
I'm not
can't
gonna sit
be
here-
all plot all the time.
well, and not only that, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, the writers didn't think to do thing X, or they didn't care about the plot, or they didn't care about this. I'm just saying they chose to tell this in a structure that feels like a video game, and I find that to be perplexing, considering that it's a television show with 10 episodes to rely on, and not a long-form video game that I can play for 30 hours.
Right.
And I'm not saying they made that decision mindlessly. I promise. I'm saying I disagree with that decision.
Yeah, and that, you know, that makes sense. I can totally understand that. I'm just hoping that, again, it's not going to be like that the rest of the season, because I would probably start complaining if I get 2 more episodes where it's like video game status, you know?
Right. You would go, why didn't you start at episode 3? Like, if
Yeah.
if you wanted to cover this much ground in that much time, why didn't you do a episode scroll at the start and then a flashback or something, and then start on episode 3.
Right.
But I will say, I do love the pacing of this show historically, so I'm willing to give this season a good solid chance to, over the course of the season have great pacing.
Yeah, as I mentioned,
they know what they're doing, right?
As I mentioned last week, last week's episode, the series premiere, or the season premiere rather, was the one episode I felt they had some pacing issues with. So
I could agree with that. And I will say I did love their use of the Mando theme, which I didn't think I would recognize so quickly. I mean, it's only been a couple years since Mando had a theme. But man, when he came in with that N1 blasting up that monster and that theme played, I was like, oh, I'm here for this. Like I forgot how much I love this particular space cowboy. Let's do this.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying this, even with, the flaws that Star Wars always has,
Everything has flaws.
It's a thing. But I think we're about close to the very last scene of this episode. Was there anything else you guys wanted to cover before we got there? Because this is going to be a
just
big
one thing. I love Bo-Katan's cynicism.
Oh yeah.
The grand tour. That just consists of her walking over to the wall and reading the fucking plaque.
Here's where everything went down, which you could already tell. All right, we're done.
Yeah,
and
she had really good dialogue through that whole walkthrough, though, and kind of explaining. I feel like Mando understood her a little more after everything that they talked about.
I also have a secondary complaint. I'm sorry. I'm not usually this person. Where I feel like they covered a lot of stuff twice in this episode. Like, I feel like Mando said it to Grogu, and then Kryze also said it to Grogu. I was like, yeah, we heard this. Like, why are you explaining this to him again? Now, like, in the story, I get, like, she probably wouldn't know that Grogu knows this, But, like, she could have gone, so, hey, Grogu, about 50 years ago, and he could have been like, yeah.
But
good.
Is that why Grogu at the end of that story looked at her funny and she was like, what are you looking at?
Well, okay. So
I don't know. I think maybe he just had questions about her choice of soup.
Well, and I think Grogu sensed a change in her heart at that moment and that's why and we'll get to that because I believe that's one of my picks. But Grogu looked at her because he sensed that something has changed in Bo-Katan Kryze.
Yeah.
And
I will say I love Katie Sackhoff's ability to deliver sci-fi dialogue.
Yes.
And
I will say I love her voice. Like, I could listen to her narrate anything. If there are audiobooks with her narrating, I feel like I may download those soon. Like, she's I'm sure you know this, Josh. Anytime you have ever edited a podcast once or twice in your life, from then on out, you're listening for voices where you're like, oh, I wouldn't hate editing that voice.
Right.
That's, chiefly our own amongst those, I'm sure. But it is, there is something where I was like, wow, to Phil's point, like, she just said a bunch of made up words and I am wrapped to the screen. Like, this is great.
Yeah, she was really good in this episode.
She played the character in animation?
Yes, she voiced the character.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's great because they made her character look a lot like her in real life as well. So,
very cool. That also happened to Dr. Aaron McDonald from the aforementioned interview, who is the astrophysicist and science advisor to all of Star Trek.
Oh, nice. That's badass.
She was recently in Prodigy. If you're not watching Prodigy with your kids, get on it.
Yes, more Janeway, please.
Yeah. You don't have to have kids, Josh, but it is a great excuse.
I did finally start watching Lower Decks, and I am a fan.
Oh, I think Lower Decks might be your favorite Star Trek.
Yeah, it's definitely really good. I don't have a lot of time, so
yeah,
I've watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm on board. Like, I need to sit and binge it, and that's why I kind of stopped because I was like, I want to just binge this whole series.
Oh yes, I have a 30-day code. Hit me up after the show.
Ooh, will do. So anything else besides those things? But to finish that, Bo-Katan was fantastic. Katie
Yeah,
Sackhoff
no.
does a wonderful job as that character.
I look forward to seeing the rest of her story arc throughout, because I honestly suspect that she's going to continue to be a major character throughout the rest of the Mandalorian, however many seasons it goes on.
Yeah.
And I like that they have given Mando so in a classic Star Wars setup, Mando would be a Jedi and Bo-Katan would be Han Solo, right? She's like, stop believing in all the weird stuff. Like, yes, there is an underground city full of magical monsters and crazy technology, but no, there's no magic. Like, what?
They're the non-believer.
Right. The
Yeah,
person
the
who's
cynic.
there, the cynic who's there to make fun of the entire setup so that people watching it that didn't want to watch it are like, see, this person gets it. That's why
You also
the
get
old Star
kind
Wars
of
works.
you also get kind of an audience insert
100%. Yes.
factor with the character
Yes.
as well.
Despite the fact that she's also a lore dumping knowledge box, right? Like she has the attitude of like, because I already know all this stuff, I don't really care about it. So like, it's an easy narrative device to get a lot out. My only complaint, like I said, specifically with that, is that I feel like she said a lot of the same stuff that Din said to Grogu, which is like, I get it. You're on a poison planet. Everything is made of time crystals. Go. I don't need you to say that again. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's also a family show, right? Like all
Gotta have
of
some
Star Wars.
aspects. Gotta have
All
some,
of Star
like-
Wars is family shows, right? Or
Yeah.
movies or whatever.
Yeah, I would say that Andor probably wasn't as much.
It depends on what kind of family.
Yeah. Yeah. So Claire says she thinks that the IG storyline, Karza storyline, and the others is them showcasing, Kree's storyline is showcasing all the new Star Wars series coming out. I could agree with that. The pirate leader that we saw from
Gorian Shard.
Yeah, Gorian Shard has actually been confirmed to be the main villain of the show Skeleton Crew that's coming out.
Oh, really?
So, that's kind of
Okay.
big. I don't think we'll see him much more after this.
Is he?
I hope we see him at least one more time.
At least a little bit more. But I think if he's going to be that main villain, we'll probably see a lot more of him in Skeleton
Yeah.
Crew. Obviously,
Yeah, no,
very
that's
Davy
gonna be-
Jones.
very
Like-
Davy Jones.
Like almost maybe a little
was.
too much.
He
A
was
little
Davy
bit too
Jones,
much Baby
basically.
Jones.
Yeah, we'll find
Um,
out because that hits later this year.
Yeah, it does. So, final thing of this episode before we get into segments. I was gonna have Justin do this, but because he's been so adamant about the Mythosaur, and he wants to see the Mythosaur, and he's so excited to see the Mythosaur, and we did get to see a Mythosaur in this episode. I was gonna have Justin kind of talk about the season boss, but I feel like we can do that just as easily. So. Let's ask Jesse. What did you think when you saw the giant dinosaur underwater?
Again, there's always a bigger fish. I was like, this is gonna be like, of course there will be a mythosaur, right? Like they spent part of this episode talking about how that's where they got the cool emblem that everybody wears, and he's going on a lore dive, literally. And-
One wrong step, man.
I mean, he cannot swim. Like, let's be honest about that.
Had his armor on, and he
I
jetpack.
oh,
So
right, like he didn't try at all, is what I'm saying. I'm totally messing. But he it's like, have you never bathed in the living waters of Mandalore before, dude? Like, you don't take the fifth step. Nobody takes the fifth step. But I was like, okay, this is a little deep of a pit to have at the end of a stairs, but it makes sense because the last time we saw Mandalorians conducting a ceremony in the episode prior, they did it at the edge of a lake where a demon crocodile lives. So it's like, oh, okay, so just like being at the edge of a lake full of a demon fish is how these people, like, that's their culture.
Like they like to live their lives that way.
Right.
water
So
of
I'm-
uncertain depth, giant monster in it,
Like-
requisite bathing. It's a fantastic bookend.
Yes. Great
Sign me
place
up.
for a temple. Let's put some sort of conclave here. So I But yes, I think this is the first actual literal lore dive I've ever seen a character go on, where they jump into the waters of the past and sink down to like the title of the episode, right? Like that's pretty impressive. Really like the design of the mythosaur. Like every time you see the skull of an animal, right, you're like, oh, that's a cool animal, and then it turns out it was like a super dumb looking animal that you wouldn't be afraid of. But in this case, it was like, oh no, that's a cool looking animal. I'm excited to see it, unfurl its whole length and do some big animal stuff. I gotta ask what he's gonna be doing with that though. Like, is there something else, some other megafauna that we're worried about on this planet? Is he gonna use it to wrangle some of those squid whales from the Cthulhu tunnel, or like, there's a lot of ways they could go with an animal that big. But
Will
I did
Ezra
enjoy
get
the
to
design.
ride a Purgil?
I
Who?
think that's gonna be their main goal of reclaiming Mandalore, because they're gonna want, now that Bo and Mando have been there. Obviously, Mando's gonna go back to the armorer and be like, "Hey, we can go rebuild Mandalore like any time. We just gotta fight this like."
Hey,
just a mythosaur."
I have proof. I have proof. My proof is Bo-Katan. Fuck, you're not gonna want to listen to her.
Yeah, you're not gonna want to hear this, but I think a lot of it will be, they're gonna have to battle the mythosaur basically to reclaim Mandalore, because, I mean, that thing is living down there, but I guarantee it will come up to the surface to wreak havoc on anyone that tries to reclaim their city. Or
I really
whatever.
hope
Ooh.
that the mythosaur is voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch,
No.
because I think that would be the way to go.
No.
Like have it come up and be like, I've been sleeping.
it's
How's it
it's
going?
gotta be just because you know who has a history of working in Star Wars animation, doing voiceover work for Star Wars, and a like lifetime career of making animal sounds.
Peter. Wait.
D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah.
Oh, D. Bradley Baker. There you go.
He is all the
Murph.
clones.
He is all the clones.
He is
was
all.
he was the Bondu, right?
He is like all of the creatures.
Yeah.
He's
Ow.
he's Klaus the fish in American Dad. I mean, he's
Yeah. He's also Murph.
Yes, Ricky.
The slug on Star Trek Prodigy.
He's also all of the animals in the Last Airbender series. I mean, dude is everywhere.
He does
Also,
voices
James
for
Cameron
everything.
movie?
no, wrong group of people.
So, and we're gonna go back to last week's episode where we talked about this and how funny it would be if, when a mythosaur actually comes back, who's gonna ride that thing and who's gonna tame it, and how cool would it be if Grogu was the one to do it? Well, my friends, I'm here to tell you I am absolutely on board with that, and I think that's what's going to happen now. I am fully believing that Grogu will be the one to tame the mythosaur. That it will just be like destroying everything, and Grogu's just gonna walk up to it like it did the freaking Rancor. in
Just
Book of
like the
Boba
Rancor
Fett,
in Book of Boba Fett.
and be
Yep.
like, "You're done," and then just like
Hey.
climb aboard.
Stop it.
Yeah,
Stop it.
yeah. Climb aboard.
Do we have newspapers that he can roll up and pop the mythosaur on the nose?
Dark paper.
Oh my gosh.
It gets heavier every time you swing it, but whoever carries it,
He's down there
the
really
true
rubbing that mythosaur's face in the ruins. Like, no,
no,
Bad
bad
dinosaur.
mythosaur,
yeah.
bad.
Is it a dinosaur? Is it a dragon?
Yes,
Nobody knows. Oh, yes.
But yes, that's where I'm at now. I really think Grogu is going to be the one to do it.
I
now
think
the
Grogu's gonna die in the 5th episode this season.
That's awesome. That's so funny. I think he'll get like blasted. He'll get shot, and they'll be like, "Oh my god!" But he's got the armor, so he'll be okay.
Right.
Like, the final question that I have now. This is actually New Rockstars brought this up. I watch them sometimes when it comes to Mandalorian and stuff. But they brought up a question that I thought was really interesting about the armorer, and if she is the actual villain here, because it seems like in episode 1 when she's dumping water into the whatever vat to make her helmet, I'm almost positive that was water from the mines. And does she know that there's a mythosaur there? Does she know that Mando is gonna basically go there just to die? Like, is
Was she trying to feed the mythosaur by sending Din there?
right? Is she like feeding the beasts Mandalorians because that's what they have to do now or something? Like, I mean, and that's a really good question. I think. What would you think on that, Phil? Would you think the armor could be the final boss?
I would say that we have not seen enough of any kind of motive from her to put her in any kind of position one way or another. But I mean, that may in and of itself be deliberate. That we have not yet seen, any kind of real loyalty beyond to anything other than the creed.
Which
I think they're setting up a unite the fractured clans sort of thing. Like,
and is he gonna have
I'm
to take out
with
the
you, Jesse.
armorer to reunite things?
no, I think she'll be part of it. Like she,
Okay.
Her being the leader of the covert that Din is part of.
right?
Okay.
And they had, she noticed that it was him that helped save her people and stuff from in the first episode. And
yeah, it's not
she's
like
very
she said,
much-
no, we got to go feed
Yeah.
everyone to this turtle dinosaur thing now because you interrupted.
and she's, freely being like, here are the rules. Like, you did the thing. Sorry, you're out. You're great, but like, sorry, you're out. And he's like, well, what about this like orthodox rule? And she's like, okay, sure, that applies. Go for it. Like, it's not. She doesn't. To me, she doesn't feel like. And then I'll take the dark saber for myself. And I mean, if she does, then that's just a thing that Mandalorians do, and they're all easily corruptible. But I really feel like they're shooting for a unite the clans, get all the Mandalorians on one side for something, right? And then I don't know what after that, because they're gonna either like, what do you do if you set something up big in this universe? Do you do a crossover with another TV show? Do you pitch a movie at the end of it? Like, I don't know. This is sort of uncharted territory.
I will say, like you said earlier, there's always a bigger fish, and once the
Right.
Mandalorians are all united, Thrawn is going to show up, and that's going to be
Right.
the bigger fish.
And he's going to be riding on 2 mythosaurs, so it'll be
I
like
think we
twice as
could-
bad. Yeah.
I think we could still end up seeing Moff Gideon again this season.
Oh yeah, Moff Gideon's
they
absolutely
name-dropped
working
him.
for Thrawn.
They name dropped him in the last
yeah.
episode.
And
Oh
he's
yeah,
still
but I
alive,
mean, they got to
so-
explain what happened to him.
Right.
Yeah.
I really liked that Mando was like, what about that actress that fumbled the
Yeah.
bag? And Grief Karga was like, oh, she fumbled the bag. And they were like, oh, okay. What about that other character? Just went right past it. I was like, that was great. That was really good.
glossing.
Yeah, they did just kind of gloss over that, didn't they? That's okay though.
That's what you get.
We're gonna gloss over that as well, and just go right into
Segment
segments.
time.
Yes, and we're gonna start this segment with.
He's no good to me dead.
He will not be permanently damaged.
We're going to start with Boba's Bounty, which is the part of the episode where we choose our favorite new thing to come into Star Wars live action. That could be a ship, it could be a planet, it could be anything. So let's start with Phil. What's your Boba's Bounty for this week?
Okay. So I have already mentioned this guy. We're looking at the little kind of cyborg thing on Mandalore, and I found love it, great shot. The organic eyeball in there
organic.
twitching around is
Yeah.
just creepy as fuck, and I love it. Kyle Katarn on Twitter was the first person I saw refer to it as Bionicle, and as somebody who avidly collected the Lego Bionicle figures for a long time, I was struck by how terrifyingly accurate that was. This is the droid cyborg thing that lives underneath Mandalore that captured Mando. It's sneaky, it's strong, It is vampiric, ostensibly. Uh,
I just thought of a name for it. The Mandovore.
Oh, god damn it. Why
Sorry,
are you
I didn't
so
have
good
that
at
earlier.
that?
Sorry, Phil.
yeah, we got to stop just letting Jesse, just hit the first thing that comes out every time. We got to
Oh
just
man.
give him like another hour to like come back and come up with some other options.
I swear I made notes this week. I don't know.
I tell you, if anyone needs any sort of name for anything, just like send Jesse a DM. And the first thing that comes to his mind is gonna be the best thing every single time.
I appreciate that, but like everything about Open Pike Night, every name that you see us put on a thing has been workshopped literally to death, like to the point where by the time I slap a name on it, I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to just get it out of my
I
face
can't
now.
hear this anymore.
Which is
it's no longer funny.
Which is, I think, what makes our stuff good, like our merchandise that you can buy at openpike.com.
You son of a...
Thanks, Josh.
No, but like I'm legitimately very excited for the inevitable like Lego figure of this thing because it's gonna be dope.
Yeah, heck yeah. Jesse, what's your Boba's bounty for this week? Did you have one?
So I'm gonna like sort of in thematic fashion,
Cheat.
I'm gonna climb out of Phil's back into the larger version of that creature and say that my favorite new thing was the Mecha Shelob. I really liked the power loader spider that was just like living underground in the creepiest way. Like, I appreciate a good giant spider. I deeply appreciate when that giant spider has no moisture that I can see anywhere near its face. That was my main issue with Shelob in the Lord of the Rings movies, was that it was convincingly wet looking.
Ugh, yeah, gross.
And I was like,
Moist.
nah, can't deal with that. But this was a spider that I felt I could fight, right? Like, this is a fighter. This is a fighter spider. This is a spider that has
Fighter.
pieces of it that you can knock off that will blink red when the boss is about to die, right? Like, this is a boss creature, to your point, Josh, or a mid-level boss, right? Or maybe the end of an early level. And part of why I like that is that Mando remains a relatable character despite being a complete badass, right? Because he's not a Jedi, he's not a space wizard, he's not supernatural, he can't just do whatever he wants, right? Like, he has limitations, one of them being enormous metal spiders driven by spinal robots.
That's
actually one of my biggest weaknesses too, so I think that makes him relatable.
And now it made me think, now hearing you talk about it like that made me think of Metroid Prime Echoes with Quadraxis, this like giant like four-legged bot that you have to climb around on.
Mm-hmm. Ricky D is on the same page of the same book.
Yep. Well, Ricky watched me play a lot of Metroid when we were in college.
Those are, great picks. It's the same pick, but they're great picks, and I love it.
It's different, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's one form and then another form, and it's
right.
They're totally
To
different.
be fair, there weren't that many new things in this episode.
Like,
No.
you can't pick. You could pick the Mythosaur, right? But like, everybody's gonna pick the Mythosaur, so you're like, well, what am I gonna pick? And let's be honest, I didn't pick anything for this. I forgot to fill this part of the sheet out, so I branched off of Phil, and you couldn't even tell.
That's
Those
great.
of you
No,
listening
it
and
was
watching.
Wonderful. That's why I asked if you even had one, because it happens sometimes.
I'm not great at reading. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Jesse. We forgive you. You're here, and that's all that matters. My Boba's bounty this week was the planet of Mandalore. Like I was talking about earlier, I liked every wide shot of the planet, whether it be in space or on the ground. I really liked, or I guess I should say, not space, the atmosphere. Whether
It's
it was in the atmosphere on the ground.
It is some spectacular art. Just the background detail going through there. It's gorgeous.
Agreed.
Like, this is an absolutely devastated planet that is in recovery, kind of, maybe.
Kind of.
But it, even in its desolation, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, and it was really cool just to finally see Mandalore on in live action. because
That was the other thing. I mean, we've seen it off and on since Clone Wars. Since what, like
Yeah.
season 3 of Clone Wars, something
Yep.
like that.
Yep. And
But
I mean, it's always been fabled. It's always been talked about, this planet of Mandalore. Even like in the books and stuff, they always talked about the planet of Mandalore. So really, really cool to see it in live action finally. For the recording of this episode, I mean, this is obviously going to be taken out, but the recording of this episode should have Justin talking about his Boba's bounty. So for now, I'm just going to take it over and give us the he picked
Morlock.
he picked the Morlocks or the Alamites, and I had to brighten this shot up
Yeah.
really a lot because this episode was dark. There were a
Yeah.
couple shots that I had to brighten up a little bit, but I do really like these creatures as well. Justin had a really good pick with these because it is probably, aside from Mandalore, this is probably the newest thing, and aside from the robot, like the newest thing that we got added to Star Wars. So
Also, I will just say, with regard to the Alamites, when I first saw them in that lighting, I thought, shit, are we getting some weird like subspecies of Tals?
ooh,
We obviously they're not. They're their own whole
right,
thing.
right. You're
But
thinking like
I saw something out there with like 4 eyes and they, it's like
17 abs.
yes.
So yeah, good picks, guys.
Yeah.
I love this part because we get to talk about things that are new in Star Wars. But our next segment, of course, is going to be it's the Sarlacc killer scene, where we talk about our favorite still shot of each episode. So let's flip the script and take Jesse's favorite shot, which is at the 11-minute and 5-second mark. Jesse, tell us about this shot.
So this is Din Djarin's first steps onto the planet of Mandalore. He has sent his astromech droid a hunting for data, and it did not come back. So he's like, well, I guess you got to do it yourself. So he, again, pressurizes his helmet, which was an option the whole time, and decides to go after it. Now, my complaints all aside, look at this, the beautiful crags. It's like he's walking directly into an open wound left on this planet by the Empire. Even if you've never been here before as a casual Star Wars fan, you totally get what is going on with this planet. It is shot up. It is not a good time. There's a whole layer of storms before you get to the sunny part. So it's highly forbidden. It's very Star Trek of a planet because they can go there and be there and everything's fine, but they have no communications. I love that. Really digging the jutting crystalline dagger structure of everything on the planet Mandalore.
Isn't that from a crater? I feel like when you zoom
Yeah.
out on that, it's a crater that when that bomb dropped, it just crystallized to the crater immediately.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, that's so cool. I love that shot for sure. That was actually my first shot. But the guest
You're
always
welcome.
gets first pick. So, again, great pick. Let's go to Phil's shot, which comes in at the 14-minute and 40-second mark. Tell us about this shot.
I absolutely loved everything about Din's descent into the Mandalorian city. Like he points out the civic center, says to Grogu, "Hey, that's where Bo-Katan said that we'd find the entrance to the mines. Let's go." And just the use of the jetpack to assist the fall is like, I don't know why we've never, considered seeing it in that controlled descent use before. Like we generally think of it as being a way to get up to higher places, not as a, way to drop down into a giant cavern. And it's just beautiful. The lighting of the whole descent through the whole slow fall all the way down from the surface is just beautiful.
Yeah.
The screen cap looks like an anime.
It really does. And did you brighten this one too, Josh?
I just brightened it. Like I have two different versions of
Okay.
this.
No,
Um,
that's
and I brightened it right as you started talking about it because I was like, God, that one's dark too.
no, like it's mostly visible around the lighting on Grogu's pod.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I love the light on his pod. I don't think I've ever noticed that before.
Mhm.
Before this episode, I don't think they've ever showcased that before. So I love that.
That he's got mood lighting.
Yeah, yeah. Like, does it turn red when he's angry, or like?
I hope it does.
That'd be so cool when he starts using the Force. It like starts, I don't know,
Flickering.
flashing. Yeah.
But yeah, no, just any one of the frames from Din's drop down into the city is just beautiful. And we get it again then kind of when Bo-Katan comes in.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like we get some different angles when she comes in too, don't we?
Yeah, we get slightly different angles.
Yeah.
But
So that being said, I actually am just going to take over Justin's Starlight Killer scene because
steal it.
might have forgotten to go pick one earlier. Things are busy around here. So Justin actually had two, and they come in at the 39-minute. Surprise! It's the very last shot of the episode, but 39-minute and 10-second mark, and the 39-minute and 15-second mark. Basically, it is the two main shots of the mythosaur, and oh boy, seeing that at first was
I almost jumped off the couch.
yeah, my jaw dropped. And if Justin was here, he would tell you that he called me at 7 a.m. on Wednesday.
Josh,
screaming.
Josh.
Yes, screaming. I was right. Oh my God, mythosaur. Holy shit, I was right. That's like basically how that conversation went with Justin. So I don't know why there are so many little clickers in that screenshot there, but anyway, it is a wonderful.
You've been cursored.
Yeah, it's a wonderful like teaser of what we're about to see, and this creature is massive. If you go to our Instagram at QuestMePodcast, you can actually see some shots that have been brightened up, where you can see kind of the massive creature that this thing
The sheer scale of this thing.
It is huge.
It's unlike pretty much anything we've seen in Star Wars so far.
Yeah, the only thing that might rival it would be the Purgles.
Yeah.
Well, it's like an organically sized walker machine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? Like
essentially.
it's huge.
Yeah. So
think
a
it's bigger
living
than a
thing
walker,
on that
too.
scale is
So it'll be really, really cool to see where they take that, especially because Din might not have seen it on the way up. I think
Yeah.
he might have been a little unconscious as he was coming up from the depths of the Mines of Moria.
Well, I don't know if there are
Mandaloria.
degrees
Mines of
being
Mandaloria. There it
unconscious.
is.
I think you're either unconscious or not.
Well, he was in and out. You know what I
we
mean?
could ask Justin.
We could.
Right, because he's a stripper. He would know.
You would know all about being conscious or not.
He's drinking those Borgs.
Oh my God. So let's move on to our final segment
Yes.
of this week, which is it's the one-chimers. We carried this segment over from Andor because it's really good and I like it. So let's go on and let's flip the script again. I think we're gonna start with Jesse here, right? Yeah, let's start with Jesse. Here we go.
He was a great man. He died defending Mandalore.
This is the way.
So the change there, because right after that, as you were saying, she looks to Grogu and goes, "What are you looking at?" I think Grogu is sensing a little bit of a change in Kreese's heart, which is okay. Like maybe the cult isn't that bad because this guy seems to at least respect my dad. And like my dad is a respectable dude, so that's good. Maybe this guy is not an idiot. Maybe his like whole, you know, bring Mandalore back and unite everybody is not a terrible idea. Like, and if anybody would have a responsibility to do that, it would be the Princess of Mandalore, right? So,
And former wielder of the Darksaber.
right. So I feel like she is starting to open her heart a little bit to what may be her new path forward and her new way, so to speak. And Grogu is seeing that. He's sensing that change. He's like, oh, like I can totally feel vibes, man, and your vibe is new now. And I mean, that's basically what Jedi are, right? So I really like that, not only all of that, but also the cool fact that Din is cool enough to be like, hey, yeah, I respect that. Like, it's very cool of your dad to have done that. That's what he should have done. That's his job. Good job.
And I love
He
the way
Din considers her dad a true Mandalore.
Right.
and I love the way his voice cracks there, because he like I feel like he can kind of feel the pain that Bo's going through telling that story, and he was kind of empathizing. Is that the right word? Empathizing with her, and yeah, now they're gonna kiss. So sweet. But yeah, that was a wonderful pick. That whole scene there where she tells that whole story about her father was actually really, really good. And so let's move on to Phil's one chimer, which is.
It looks scary, I know. But it was once green and beautiful, back when the songs were written.
I just love that way of Din being like, hey, this is home for you and for me. Whether we can live there or not, who knows? I've never been there before, neither of you, but this is where we belong. And I just kind of love that as a way of two foundlings being the two foundlings being the first ones to go back to Mandalore. And the idea that Din has grown up with music, with songs of Mandalore and just the stories of his home world. I thought that was beautiful.
And what a additionally beautiful metaphor for building a family, right? Like, yeah, you're going to go through this turbulence and this cloudy, very dangerous part. And then on the other side of that, everything will be pretty good.
Yeah.
Like,
it's dark and scary for a little bit, but...
And yes, it will still take a ton of work. But it will not be quite this bad all the time. And, if you bring the right people with you, everything will be mostly fine. So the whole planet and, the story in surrounding it is hugely metaphorical. But yeah, I think you're making a great point, Phil.
Well, thank you.
I agree. And I'm excited to see where they go with this. Where they go with Mando and Grogu. Are those two going to be the ones to really be the new leaders of Mandalore? I guess we'll see.
I think Grogu will probably usurp the throne, right? And he'll kill Din in the second to last episode, and then he'll become the leader of Mandalore, and he will command the rest of them bow down before him, I assume.
Yeah. And then just
by squeaking at them.
Grogu with the dark, he'll be wielding the Darksaber.
He'll take their minds, and he will speak directly to their minds because he's,
Powerful
he's a wizard.
AF. Yeah. I love that one chimer, though. We're going to move on to my one chimer, which is a little bit longer because that's kind of how I live my life. So
I want you to get the full tour. These mines date back to the age of the first Mandalore. According to ancient folklore, the mines were once a mythosaur lair. Mandalore the Great is said to have tamed the mythical beast. It is from these legends that the skull signet was adopted and became the symbol of our planet. This is it.
And once again, we get Bo-Katan being sarcastic and like, here you go. giving you the
And
whole tour. I'm gonna read this plaque to you. But I do really like the whole setup there. Of it once was a mythosaur lair. The mythosaur was. Did I
We
spell
get-
that wrong on
we
there?
get the 30-second
Oh,
we get the 30 seconds of foreshadowing there.
oh, okay. I was like, dang. Ricky
Oh, no,
says
Ricky's-
one chimer in parentheses, and I'm like, did I spell that wrong? No, it was
He's
because
just
my
giving you
was
shit about
30
picking long
seconds.
quotes every time.
Ricky, we do podcasts together. You know me, okay?
Look, you know how it is. This don't matter. None of this matters.
But I wanted to have that whole,
Okay, Carl.
just that whole thing as my one chimer of her reading that plaque because it's a really cool piece of lore, like we had talked about
It
earlier.
is.
They gave a lot of good lore in this episode for people that didn't watch Clone Wars or didn't watch Rebels or didn't read books. You know what I mean? It's great to see them give
Star
that
Wars
kind
books. He means people who didn't read Star
of
Wars.
Star
books.
Wars books. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, that's what I consider books. But yeah, it was good to get more of the Mandalore in this.
But
And yeah, let's. I'm just gonna play. Yes, Ricky, making fun of the length.
It's a phrase
understand.
frequently associated with Ricky D.
I am. Here's Justin's one chimer.
Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian?
And if I do get Justin to come back and talk about that, that will be right here where I'm talking. But if not, then I'm assuming he picked that because it's Bo-Katan once again being snarky and looking at Grogu going, really? He's not that good. I'm also that good. You know what I mean?
I love it. Just like, yeah, kid, I know. I'm good.
Yeah. And Claire seems to agree with Justin. Yes. Thank you, Justin. So let's go to the final part of the episode where we do the rating. I like to assume that the smug Tusken Raider drinking out of the melon is me, and the other Tusken Raiders that are arguing is you two. I'm pointing in the wrong direction, but that's the whole thing of that new video. Anyway, let's start with Jesse. What is your rating for this week's episode?
All right, so initially I gave this episode a 7, and then I thought about it some more, and I bumped that down to a 6 because, look, I love video games. I have played video games. I recently played Mass Effect, actually, for the first time, the whole trilogy all the way through, at the behest of aforementioned Dr. Aaron McDonald, and I was just wrapped. I was like, this is so good. This works so well as a video game. There's definitely stuff in here lifted from Star Wars. There's stuff in here lifted from Star Trek. I'm talking like episode plots that directly became missions, and I was fine with it. And it worked really, really well. It does not work in the other direction. If I, as a casual viewer, am feeling like I'm watching somebody play a video game while I'm watching your TV show, something is up. And I will repeat all the caveats I gave it before. I understand it's a show for family. There's going to be a wide audience, et cetera, et cetera. It's very fun. I think they're being very economical with the storytelling. I don't feel they made the choice mindlessly. I'm sure they arrived at it for a whole bevy of reasons that I'm not privy to and may become privy to later. But right now, I don't like that decision, and it takes away from the episode for me. I had a lot of fun in this episode, but that combined with them repeating a lot of stuff was kind of like, I don't need that. And in an episode this economical, you specifically don't need that. With as much ground as they were able to cover, I know they can do it well. And there are some spots where they didn't, so I'm going to pull that back. And the reason I give it a 6 is because I still think it's better than your average episode of TV, right? Which I would put like at about a 5. I think this is better than your average episode of TV. I don't think it's better than your average episode of Mandalorian. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
All right. Yeah, out of 10. Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
So
fair.
What's your rating for this week?
Like Jesse said, there is a lot of repetition. There's some Mando bits that are repeated to Grogu that we got last episode. some reiterations of the whole, if you know how to navigate, you'll never be lost. That's not bad per se, but it does kind of pull things down a little bit. That said, we got more Bo-Katan action. We got the big reveal of the living mythosaur. I got to call it a 7.5.
All right. That's not bad. And Justin rated. Oh, here, yeah. Let's. Ricky says, "Last of Us had a lot of moments where you're watching and think, I know exactly how this would work in the game, even if I never played the game. It's kind of fun, but it's also distracting." So basically, agreeing with Jesse there. And that's why I actually kind of took my rating down. Mine was originally a 9. I'm taking it down to an 8 because of that. Jesse, you convinced me. Damn.
It's the worst.
But you make a lot of
What
good
can I
points about
say?
this.
He's
and
very persuasive.
yeah, and look, I'm a homer through and through. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to like Star Wars, and I'm going to like it more than the average person is going to like it, no matter what. That's why I would say an 8 instead of a 6, because for me, it's still Mandalorian is still my favorite Star Wars property in this current week. But like, and actually over the last couple years, it's been my favorite property. So again, like I said, I had it at a 9 before, but I do agree with Jesse that there was a few things in this that maybe it wasn't so much a 9, and it kind of made me second guess myself. And if I'm second guessing myself, it's definitely not a 9. So I'll give out Justin's rating. It was an 8.5, which I would assume he probably had the same complaints that we did, but he put the 0.5 on there because of the mythosaur.
For the mythosaur, yeah.
That would
Which
be
is fair. That's valid.
Yeah, absolutely. And so total, that would give this episode a 75% from Quest Me, and that is not bad. It's a little lower than it was last week, but still 75 it's pretty good. So
And last week, I think we were a little just hyped to be back.
to be back. Yep.
Well, and I would, like, as a person who watched both of these today, I would say the first one was better. Like, not markedly or at a point where I'm like, and why did you make me watch this one? But like, of the two, the first one I think was better than this one, which is not, it's not like a giant gulf or anything.
We're just going to keep making you come back and watching Star Wars.
Hell
What are you thinking? Like, this is the last show they have in the pipeline, right? They're not going to make any more.
No, this is the end. This is
Okay, that's good.
like the Star Wars franchise just caps off right at the end of this season. That's it.
People are getting franchise fatigue with Star Wars now, right? Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy has said that she's retiring. She's not casting anymore. She's not doing any more Star Wars stuff. That's it. It's all done.
Making a ton of money sucks. I'm sure she was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I don't want to make any more
money from you. What? All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week. We covered a lot. This is a longer episode than normal, but that's okay because there was a lot to cover in this one. So,
and we had more friends in the chat.
We did have more friends in the chat, and I want to give big kudos to that. Big thanks to Claire, to Ricky, to Roy. We had the other Roy. We had both Roys in here.
Both Roys.
Who else? Did we miss anybody else? I know I got a message from Erica was watching, and then a couple other people were watching that I know you didn't say anything, but that's okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And as always, you can come join us live on Sundays at around 7:30 Mountain Standard Time at youtube.com/@questme. Next week, we're going to have a new friend coming to the show. His name is Roe. Scuttlebutt Roe is his name, and he's from the Scarif podcast, which clearly that's going to be a Star Wars fan as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun talking to a new guest to Quest Me. So, again, Jesse, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy Star Trek schedule and coming and talking about Star Wars in our little tiny podcast corner. Why don't you give the listeners and viewers just another little rundown of where they can find Open Pike and all those things?
Thank you so much, Josh. It has really feels like you and I have come a long way since the first day of first grade. That is not an exaggeration, folks. That's literally how Josh and I met. But as Josh mentioned, of course, I am one of the hosts of Open Pike Night, the Star Trek Strange New Worlds podcast where your personal logs are the prime directive. If you would like to be part of the show, go to openpike.com/join us, record your voicemail, send it to us, we'll put it on the show. If you're listening to this as a podcast, just stay in the podcasting app that you're in right now and search for Open Pike Night. We'll pop right up. Highly recommend starting out with our Melissa Navia interview and going from there, and then going back into our episode reviews, because guess what? Season 2 of Strange New Worlds is probably coming up soon. There still hasn't been an announcement, but the entire episode, the entire second season is in the can. It's done. It's ready to go. Paramount is trying to decide, when can we drop this that will make you keep a subscription to our streaming service year round.
And, it's not like Anson Mount's doing anything else right now. Or
Not currently, but yes, he has been doing a lot lately. That is one of the panels that we went to at Fan Expo, and man, that guy is dedicated to his craft, let me tell you.
He's spectacular. He really is.
As Josh mentioned, if you would like to listen to Open Pike Night, just check it out here in this podcasting app, or go to youtube.com/@OpenPike. You can interact with the show on Twitter @OpenPike, or you can follow it on Instagram for some pretty cool visual content @OpenPike.
Hell yeah. And Phil, why don't you tell the viewers where they can find you?
Hey, I'm here on QuestMe. You can find me on Twitter. I am @FlipWriter. You can find my blog at swordsoftheancients.com, where I do a bunch of book reviews and just kind of general chat about my life as a librarian, because that is what I do when I'm not here.
Really quickly, you guys, I have to show you this. Phil, when I was in Portland, I got one of those mystery boxes from one of those vendors, which I never do that, right? But there was one more Cowboy Bebop box.
We came.
I bought it, and I got a cigarette case that
hell yes,
the crew on it, and I literally almost started smoking just so that I could put cigarettes in here. I was like, I'm really proud of myself for quitting, but this almost makes it worth it. I immediately thought of you guys, and that was one of those things where I was like, I am going to show people this when I see them again. Thank you again for having me, Josh.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jesse, thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Like Phil said, there's going to be all the links that we talked about in this episode are going to be in the show notes. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, @QuestMe Podcast. Any social media, just search @QuestMe Podcast. And once again, thank everyone for joining us in the live show today and hanging out with us. For those of you that are listening in podcast land, come visit us next Sunday. We're going to be talking about Chapter 19 of The Mandalorian. This week, for QuestMe, I have been your host.
I'm Philip.
I'm Jesse from Open Pike Night.
Justin not being here really ruined that because my notes have things in place. But anyway, of course, we are going to talk to you next week.
Put your clothes on, Justin.
May the Force be with you.